Christian assumptions about what a pastor and pastor's wife should and should not be like.
Christian assumptions about what a pastor and pastor's wife should and should. Oh, so I guess he's asking what other people assume
We should be like.
you should be like.
No, both. Both of us should be like.
Or what a pastor and pastor's wife should be like.
But this is not from like anyone. This is coming from Christians. So what Christians believe we as pastor and pastor's wife should be like.
Yeah. Those are like 4 questions in one. Mm-hmm. Christian assumptions about what a pastor should be like. Mm-hmm. I think most people think that pastors should be docile, non-aggressive, easily pushed over.
I think it's more along the lines that they should be perfect.
That too, like it's like an impossible standard of perfection. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely get that.
Mm-hmm. And in that, always be merciful and graceful, or gracious,
mm-hmm.
and merciful and kind and never angry.
Yeah. Yeah, because then as soon as a pastor gets frustrated or angry or doubtful or fed up, then people are like, "Oh, a pastor is losing faith."
Or if they're rebuking and they have to be stern, they think of them as unloving.
Unkind. Yeah, that's actually a really important. That's a really important because I think we've kind of noticed this when we've done counseling. Is like when we try to be direct and truthful, a lot of people don't seem to take that well. I don't know what it is. Perhaps maybe people think that the pastor should just be on their side always. Rather than trying to give them biblical truth or biblical standards of truth. I mean, obviously, everything that a pastor does should be done in love and should be done in gentleness and for the sake of correction. But we live in such like a sensitive, like emotionally sensitive culture that if truth is spoken and it hurts, then that means we're being unloving. And I don't think that's the case. Did you put all these preheated for the oven? Princess is about to do some pizza right now, so.
But yeah, I mean, as a pastor and pastor's wife, since we do counsel a lot, we do open up our home. They see us in our natural environments. And we do try to be loving and gentle when people come to us, and we do it over and over and over again. But I believe as a pastor and pastor's wife, we are called to call people to repentance at times. And if they're not willing to hear the first, second, third time, at a certain point, the Lord does give us that authority to be able to be stern with them and rebuke them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not in a I'm yelling at you, but in a you know better, just like a father would to a child.
And it seems like we're scolding people, and we're not necessarily scolding people. You know, that's just not necessarily the case. But truth can feel hurtful. And what's funny is most people know that when we speak the truth to them, that's right, that it's right. And they know that it's right, and they are choosing not to do what is right, and therefore they feel convicted. And so they feel attacked.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think at first they feel justified, and then they kind of shut down, and they listen, and then as a little bit of time goes by and you continue to talk to them, they realize, like, okay, what you're saying is true. Yeah. And they kind of come around. I was going to address, though, I don't necessarily know if he's asking this question referred to how we treat others or how we ourselves are and we carry ourselves as pastor and pastor.
I think at least knowing plenty of pastors in my lifetime and seeing my dad is we're not allowed to have dissenting opinions. We have to tread carefully in our words, that if we say anything that might offend anyone in our congregation, then we're the ones at fault, because somehow, some way, we must always capture the neutral ground for everyone. If we don't, then somehow, then we're not being sensitive to people's opinions, or dissenting opinions. And I think that's a dangerous thing to uphold on a pastor. We're going to differ with people's ideas.
Which is true, because we are, even though you are a pastor and I'm your wife, we are still human. And we still have faults, and we still like to joke. We still like, we have the same issues that everybody else has. But like you said, we've just learned how to deal with them early on in a biblical sense. And therefore, we're a little bit farther along in our maturity than others.
Yep.
But we're still, like I said, we're still humans. We still fail a lot. We are not perfect.
Right.
And I think that's something that...
And I think what happens is the congregation ends up assuming a standard of perfection upon the pastor that they themselves will not adhere to. Like, it's okay it's not okay for the pastor to do certain things, but it's okay for them to do certain things because they're not a pastor. And it's like, no. The biblical standard is for everyone. And so, how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you live your life, what you post, everything should be held, should keep everyone held accountable in the congregation just as much as the pastor. I think what happens is because the pastor is seen as like the ideal spiritual person, then anything below that is good enough. Whereas that's just not the case.
Yeah.